What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so the first game of today's play-in pitted the Atlanta Hawks against the Miami Heat. The winner of this game would go on to be the seventh seed, and they would play the second seed Boston Celtics in the playoffs, which will start this upcoming weekend. Now, this game was won, as you all probably know now, by the Atlanta Hawks by the final score of 116 to 105. Just to go over this game briefly, John Collins for the Atlanta Hawks scored 10 points, and he also had 4 rebounds. He was 4 of 8 from the floor. John Collins, 3 of his 4 rebounds were offensive. And before I go further, that was a key component in this game that I noticed. Like, just from the get-go, just from looking at the two teams, you could clearly see a size difference for the or a size advantage for the Atlanta Hawks over the Miami Heat. This is the same problem, even though it was more pronounced last year in last year's Eastern Conference Finals, when Miami clearly, even though they came very, very close to making it to the NBA Finals, but one of the things they just couldn't overcome, despite how well Jimmy Butler played in that series, they had a distinct size disadvantage against Boston, and that caught up with them. In this game, the size advantage wasn't quite as pronounced, but it was still there, and that's what led to a lot of easy buckets for the Atlanta Hawks. Transition layups, transition dunks, alley-oop dunks, putbacks. It just was too much, man. Too much. And Miami just didn't have the same easy scoring opportunities. They had to work harder, much harder to get their points. And to be honest with you, if it wasn't for Kyle Lowry, this game probably would have been something of a blowout. But Kyle Lowry helped to make this game a little bit more competitive. Miami all year have struggled scoring the basketball. They only scored 109 points per game. Now, if this was, of course, 10, 15 years ago, that would have been a great mark. But when you look at the fact that the league average was almost 115 points a game, and you had teams like Sacramento average 120-plus points per game, 109 is not so great. And then you look at the fact that, and I think one of the commentators said this, in the second half of the season, Miami's defense began to take a bit of a nosedive. So they're not the same defensive team that they were last year, which sort of made up for their lack of offensive firepower. But this year, Miami just clearly is not the same team that they were last year. But anyway, for the Atlanta Hawks, they played a faster pace. I'm guessing that might be a product of Quinn Snyder, and that makes a lot of sense considering when Quinn Snyder was coaching the Utah Jazz. Oftentimes they had a fast pace. Actually, he did have a fast pace when he was coaching the Utah Jazz. The problem was Utah was just not a good defensive team, and that got them. That often caught up with them in games or in the playoffs. The few times they did make the playoffs. But anyway, Clint Capella had 4 points, but 21 rebounds, 8 offensive, and that's just indicative of the inside advantage that they had over the Miami Heat. Trae Young had a pretty good game, 25 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. The fact he had 8 rebounds, that's a shame. Miami should be ashamed of themselves. Let a guy that's barely 6'1". I don't even know if he's really 6'1". Trae Young looks to me like he's like 5'11" and 3/4, but For him to get 8 rebounds is a disgrace. It's a disgrace for Miami. Trae Young was 8 of 18 from the floor, only 1 of 8 from 3-point range. Trae Young's outside shooting is very, very overrated, man. Very overrated. But he was 8 of 9 from the free throw line. DeJounte Murray had 18 points. He had some big buckets down the stretch for the Atlanta Hawks that pretty much sealed the deal. 7 of 16 shooting from the floor overall, 3 of 8 from 3-point range. And their bench altogether combined for some 53 of the 116 points that they scored. So almost half their points came from the bench. And Atlanta did not shoot well from outside, but that didn't matter because of the fact that Atlanta out-rebounded Miami 63 to 39. Just an amazing, amazing rebound advantage. As a matter of fact, when you think about it, like I said, if it wasn't for Kyle Lowry, this game would be a blowout. They had 63 rebounds, 22 offensive rebounds to Miami, who only had 6 offensive rebounds. And they only had 12 turnovers. Atlanta Hawks, only 12 turnovers. And Miami had, I think, 8 turnovers. So turnovers were pretty low altogether in the game, but for Miami, Jimmy Butler had 21 points, but he only shot 6 of 19 from the floor. It was 9-11 from the free throw line. He had 4 rebounds and 9 assists and 2 steals, going on 1 block. Bam Adebayo had 12 points and 9 rebounds, but he was only 5 of 12 from the floor. And I say only because, you know, Bam generally scores a lot of his points in the paint, and, you know, that's partially why he's only 5 of 12, because of the size problems that they were having playing against Atlanta down low. Kyle Lowry was simply incredible tonight. He tried to do everything he could. 33 points, 11 of 16 shooting from the floor, 6 of 9 from 3-point range. Go along 5 assists. He had a flashback game, but just wasn't enough. Tyler Hero, 26 points, 12 of 23 shooting from the floor, but he was only 2 of 9 from 3-point range. Matter of fact, Miami was only 11 of 34 from 3-point range. Miami is not noted for being a great 3-point shooting team anyway. My problem from watching this game is, okay, why did Miami acquire Kevin Love and Cody Zeller? I thought they acquired them because of the fact that they could help them with some of the size issues that they had. But I didn't really see much of either player. Kevin Love played 3 minutes. Cody Zeller played 4 minutes. And I get it. They're not featured players like that. They're not great scoring players. But I just don't understand why they didn't get a little bit more PT, especially Cody Zeller. I mean, I get it, Kevin Love's an older player, but I just didn't understand why the hell they made these moves. Whatever. So, now that Miami is lost, they will have to play Friday. I think they have to play the winner of Chicago and Toronto. And if Miami loses Friday, that's it. That's it. That's the end of their season. But anyway, shout out to the Atlanta Hawks. You know, got a big victory. It was a very entertaining game to watch. Tell me what you guys think.